The word strategy is just the elimination of alternatives, which means this. There's unlimited number of ideas and ways that we could grow our brand. But which of the opportunities is going to provide the highest ROI among all the opportunities that present itself? Because we have limited resources and limited time. So strategy is being able to allocate unlimited opportunities with limited time and resources.
You're watching The Marketing Misfits with Norm Farrar and Kevin King.
Mr. Farrar, I'm so happy you could figure out which button to hit to actually turn this live. You would think that after 60 episodes or whatever we've done, you would know which button. Do I need to get a little sticker, like a Coca-Cola Zero sticker, and put it on the button?
Does your voice get on your nerves too?
Every once in a while, but I just put it in 2x.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
As my buddy Mark would say, I'm alive and kicking.
Awesome. And that's your buddy who's on the friend list, right?
Yeah, he made the short list.
All right, very good.
He made the short list. Norm's so happy right now. Everybody's like, what are they talking about? If you go back and listen, I don't know exactly what's the episode with Adam Galad. We recorded that, and we were talking about different things, and I talked about that. I went off to St. Bart's last week and did a little sabbatical on myself. Spent 4 days sitting on the beach with a notepad in my hand and notepad in one hand and a cigar in the other hand, just doing deep thought on business and personal stuff. And somehow it came up in the conversation that I made a list of actually who's my true friends. I have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of good buddies, a lot of good people, but who could I totally 100% count on? And I announced on the podcast, Norm made that list. There's 4 or 5 people on that list. That was it. And Norm made that list. So he's still in shock, I think, and still crying. And he's still crying a little. And he hasn't been able to tell his wife yet. So that's going to be dinner tonight. She's going to be, guess what? I'm in the Dream 100, but I got something even bigger to tell you.
I made the list. I'm part of the team.
You're part of the team. That's right. Speaking of someone that makes lists, our guest today is someone that makes every list. It's I think we just need to say he needs to put on his bio, not a Ecom Breakthrough Podcast, or not Hadley Designs, or not this, and he'd say Winner's Circle. Because this guy is always in the winner's circle. Everything that he touches turns to gold. I can't wait to see what happens with it. I think he's got 17 kids. So I can't wait to see, one of them's probably going to be president or something one day, because everything he touches, he and his wife touch, turn to gold. Because if you don't know Josh Hadley, Josh is one of the smartest guys out there. I mean, he's entrepreneur at true heart. I think he'll tell us a story, but I think when he was in college, a sophomore or something, I think it was. He was head of the entrepreneur department. I don't know. He ran some big entrepreneur thing at his university. Got out of school, went to work for American Airlines for a little while, and said, "To heck with this." His wife's a very talented artist, and they formed a business, and now they're just crushing it, doing 8 figures a year. But not only are they good at business, but he's very good at the marketing side and the psychology side and creating systems and streamlining, because when you have 17 kids, you got to figure out systems of how to manage it. So I'm super excited to have our guest on today. Not only, when I say winner, I'm serious. He's spoken at several of my $1 billion seller events, and he's always placing, he or his wife or both of them are always placing first or second. And I've had to pay him a lot of money over the years in winning. So I think he owes us some good stuff today. What do you think?
All right. He'll deliver. He better deliver. Where's the man? There we go. I hit the button. I hit the right button.
You hit the right button.
What's up, gentlemen?
How you doing, Josh?
I'm good. Do you want me to bring my 17 kids in right now, or was that?
We just put them in the background. Just have them all come in and wave. That would be great. Yeah. No, he doesn't have 17 kids. That's a joke. But 4, right?
We have 4 kids. Yep.
Yeah, four kids. And
I'm not trying to follow the path of Elon Musk. That's the way you made it seem at the beginning. It's like he's fathered a lot of children, and no.
How many does Elon have now? I just saw that the other day, like
12?
17 or 18 or something like that.
What?
No, it is a lot.
I don't know what the number is. I need to look that up.
See, that's what we get to look forward to one day. If we become the richest person on earth, we get to have lots of kids, Norm. I mean, just imagine you're not done yet. You just thought you were done.
Maybe I have visions of banging all sorts of people. X-nay, Connie, X-nay.
So Josh, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. So just the audience that's never heard of you knows a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so Josh Hadley, my wife and I are e-commerce business owners. We have been running our own brand called Hadley Designs, which has really turned into a stationary empire. As Kevin mentioned, 8-figure brand, and our focus and goal right now is to get to 9 figures and become one of those brands that you will recognize, and you will see us on store shelves. You'll walk into Target and you will see our products there. That is like the vision that my wife and I have for our brand. And every day we get one step closer to that. So that's what we do. What originally got us into that, though, was my wife was originally designing custom wedding invitations for people. And so over the years, that was a decade ago, and we have just continued to pivot. Our journey has been filled with many ups and downs, as any entrepreneur's world is. And in turn, about 2 or 3 years ago, Kevin, you and I were sitting at a dinner down in Austin. And I remember we were talking, and you were like, you ask really good questions. You would actually be a really good podcast host. And I was like, I've actually had that on my mind. And I think it was literally about 6 months later, I started my podcast. You were one of the first people on that podcast. And it was my version of just like being able to give back. Because I've learned a lot of this stuff that I'm an avid podcast listener. That's how I got started on my Amazon journey and in e-commerce as a whole, was just listening to really smart people. Where were people winning? Where were they having success? And so that's what I do now with the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast, is just trying to say, this is what I'm currently doing in my business. Here's other really smart people, what they're doing in their business. Here's how you could actually apply those into your own business today. So that's what keeps me busy, in addition to the 4 children, not 17.
Oh, yeah. Kevin was close. Do you remember you're talking about podcasts back in the day? And I'm talking around, 2013 to 17? There's really only one Amazon podcast, and that was the Amazon seller. I forget who the podcast host was, but if you were on Amazon and you were successful, you were on that podcast.
Well, yeah, you had Kevin Reiser, and you had the Amazon seller that's drawing a complaint. Oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it was Kevin Reiser. He's no longer doing that. That was a
long time ago.
It was a different host.
It was a different host. He went on. He came from the chiropractic world. I'm completely drawing a blank right now. But anyway, there was only a couple of them. Now it seems like, I think I'm tracking like 62 just to Amazon, specifically on Amazon. And if you add in all the marketing and the other stuff, there's well into the 200 or 300 that are out there. So how do you, and podcasting is great, but the thing is, it's actually work. I mean, as you know, you gotta get guests, you gotta shoot it, what are you gonna talk about? And then you gotta edit it, you gotta market it, you gotta put it out. And marketing it is not easy. Because Norm and I went to a podcast show last year, and I think there was a stat that kind of surprised me. And they said, this is a huge industry, but only it was a very small percentage. What was the number? Like 3-4% ever make it to 7 episodes?
Yep.
Or something like that. So how do you keep that? Do you do them in batches, or do you do them every week you're doing another one, or how do you keep that schedule, or do you keep a regular schedule? Is it every single week, or is it when you can?
Yeah, so we do come out with podcasts every single week, but as you would expect, I do have a system behind the madness, and I'm very regimented with my time, and so I will will batch the content. So I will go through 6 weeks and I will record 6 months of episodes in those 6 weeks. And I've got back-to-back episodes lined up because like when I'm in podcast world, it's like I'm flying, right? Things are firing on all cylinders. And so I just want to keep that momentum going. So that is probably like if you were to ask some of the guests, I think somebody texted me and we recorded back in, I want to say January. And he's like, dude, when does my podcast air? And I was like, you got about a month or two. So that, I mean, it comes with its drawbacks, but I'm also not known for, I'm not going to be the guy recording the podcast episode when, I don't know, the tariffs just come out and announcing, breaking news. And I'm not the guy that's talking about, hey, Amazon just released this new update. That's not me. You were talking about like podcast marketing though. Here's kind of, and maybe I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts since you went to that podcast conference. This is kind of the path that I'm on with my podcast, knowing that like, look, my full-time hustle right now is the brand and growing the brand. The podcast is almost like I'm sharing my journey from an 8-figure seller to a 9-figure seller. And people get a kind of like, it's almost going to be like a diary or journal entry for myself when I look back on it at some point in life. But the main thing that I'm doing, here's the marketing that I am doing, because I'm not generating any revenue from this. I'm not doing any sponsorships, nothing, right? In fact, I pay a video editor, I pay a podcast editor. So like I'm losing money for all intents and purposes. So why? Why do I do it? Well, number one, it allows me to network with really smart people, right? And that's one of the funny things is like, I just had some of the founders from Simple Modern on my podcast. This is a $250 million brand, very well-known brand. And you just ask somebody, it's like, hey, would you like to be on a podcast? It doesn't matter how many followers I do or don't have. Just saying, do you want to come on my podcast adds a lot of credibility. So like, I love the networking aspect of it, number one. But number two, I feel like it's my version of golf, being able to stay in contact with people that I know are making waves and being able to say like, hey, let's talk again in another 6 months. And it gives me like a sense of purpose of like why I should reach out to those people, have them back on the show again. But like the only way I'm marketing the podcast, Kevin, is like, I'll go speak at events, right? And just raise awareness. Like, hey, I do this other thing called a podcast, subscribe. That's about it. But like my core thing of marketing, and this has been the mindset shift that I've had as I've learned from Alex Hormozy, which is if I can focus on putting out excellent content that will just spread, that people will say like, holy cow, that episode was fire. I've got to go share this with my mastermind group or my business partner or my friend that's in the e-commerce space, right? That to me, like focusing on the product, my product in the podcast is like the content itself. Can people get actionable level insights from every episode? So I hope that that's what I'm trying to be known for. And I went to a $1 million seller networking dinner just a couple days ago here in Dallas. And 3 people, the first thing that they said is like, hey, I had your face like staring at me on the card drive here. And I was like, and some of these people I had never even met. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they then had shared it. They're like, yeah, I just shared it with my business partner. I was like, okay, like I'm doing something good. So it's like the analogy I use is my podcast is like bamboo. The growth is extremely small and slow right now. And one day the hope is that that thing will just shoot through the roof and just doesn't stop growing. It's like, where'd this guy come from?
Well, I think every brand should have a podcast and an app. Every brand should. I just met, every brand should have a podcast for the exact, even if you're not going to monetize it, like you said, you're not monetizing it right now. Eventually, maybe you will, but it opens that door. It actually gives you some authority and credibility, and people will talk to you, and you're controlling the narrative when you're the host of where you go, what path. So you can ask questions, and Norm and I will do this sometimes on marketing. We'll ask questions for ourselves of the person on the podcast, of something that he and I are working on. Like this just happened earlier when we shot today. This is the 3rd one we've recorded today. And it happened earlier. We both asked a couple questions that are more for us, but also it benefits the audience and we know where to go. But I think podcasting and YouTube, what we found at this conference is that YouTube is the number one place for podcast discovery. It's not Apple, it's not Spotify, it's actually YouTube. So that's an area that we've doubled down on, and are really working right now because we kind of neglected it and we're just posting stuff up there and just letting it sit. But we're making a concerted effort because that's where we think the biggest opportunity for growth is, because something like 55 or 60% of all podcasts are either found or listened to on YouTube. And now a lot of people are watching it on big screen TVs in their house. Something like 40% of all YouTube videos are viewed on a 75-inch or larger screen. And so that's a big one. But another one that's big, and I don't know if you're doing this with Hadley Designs, and if you're not, it's something that you and your wife should look into, is an app. I just met someone doing $21 million a year on TikTok. They don't even have their own brand. They're reselling. It's pants. It's some sort of women's pants that fit all different sizes of women. And they have competition. And they're not on Amazon at all. They're not on any other platform at all. And that's something that Norm and I are going to be talking to them about and trying to help them out with. But they're doing they're out of Houston, doing $21 million a year. She's got a 25,000 square foot warehouse. And they just figured out TikTok. And they're developing their own brand now to use that data. 9,000 SKUs, or it's like 1,000 parents, but then we add all the different sizes and stuff. And what she was saying that, look, we do well on TikTok, but where we make our money is on our app. We developed an app 4 years ago for our brand, and we can do all kinds of push notifications. We don't have problems with email, going into spam or this or that. She said we come out with a new item or a new sale or new whatever, we push out on the app. We'll do $10 million this year off of our app. It's our customers only app. So there's so much you can do as a brand. You don't have to think of podcasting or apps as something that they're great brand supplements. And I think you get to talk about Hadley Designs. We get to talk about what we do, and I think everybody should be looking at those.
Hey, you know what, Kev? I was talking to a client this morning about he sells knives, but he's made $1 gazillion on apps. So I wasn't going to talk about this today, but since you brought it up, I told you about this tattoo app that the guy made. I have a couple of tattoos, and I thought this was a pretty cool app. Do you know, he was saying these are what these guys are making per month on this app, okay? $600,000 per month.
In product sales or in membership sales or in what?
In membership sales. And he says he hasn't even touched the tip of the iceberg yet.
And with no-code software, with AI now, you can do an app. I mean, if you have some basic knowledge, you don't have to be an expert. You can do some pretty cool stuff. Is this something that you've looked into at Hadley Designs at all, Josh? Or are you putting that, just make a note like app?
Yeah. For real. Kevin, it's a great, I agree 100%. And here's what I love about marketing, right? And I learned this too. Early on, one of the first mastermind groups that my wife ever joined was War Room. So with Ryan Dice, Perry Belcher, Roland.
That's how
Frazier.
I met you. I think that you were at a dinner, or you're in Austin, and I think Rich Goldstein actually. We went to dinner at a sushi place, and that's where I first met you, I think. Yep,
exactly. That was like 2017 when we first joined that. And here's the thing. Right? Everybody, there's some wicked smart marketing tactics out there. Here's what I did learn from this is everybody's kind of got their zone of genius. I think if we decide to double down on an app, I think we could make it work. If we decide to double down on podcasts for Hadley Designs, we could make it work. If we decide to double down on TikTok with Hadley Designs, we could make that work. What I have learned is that business strategy is nothing more. The word strategy is just the elimination of alternatives, which means this. There's unlimited number of ideas and ways that we could grow our brand. But which of the opportunities is going to provide the highest ROI among all the opportunities that present itself? Because we have limited resources and limited time. So strategy is being able to allocate unlimited opportunities with limited time and resources.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Kevin and Norm here with a quick word from one of our sponsors, 8Fig. Let me tell you about a platform that's changing the game for Amazon sellers. That's right, it's called 8Fig. On average, sellers working with 8Fig grow up to 400% in less than a year.
8Fig offers both funding and free tools for e-commerce growth and cash flow management. And here's how it works.
8Fig provides flexible, data-driven funding tailored to your exact needs. You know, they could fund anywhere from up to $50,000 all the way up to $10 million.
8Fig gives you free tools to forecast demand, manage inventory, and analyze cash flow.
Visit 8fig.co, that's 8fig.co, to learn more or check the link in the show notes below.
Just mention Marketing Misfits and get 25% off your cost.
That's 8fig.co, 8fig.co. See you on the other side.
And so one of my favorite things is just to like be able to say like, yes, love this idea. We go through a scoring mechanism, which is the ICE scoring framework, which is what is the impact? I stands for the impact that this idea can have. Okay. Which is, this could actually be game changing for our business, right? This could be the iPhone as it was for Apple, right? So impact is one. C is going to be its complexity, right? Like, how easy is it for me to spin up, an app, right? With AI, it's easier, but I have no technological background. Like, I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer. So like, let's say it's going to be moderately more difficult, right? And then E is like its ease of implementation into your existing systems, right? It's like, do we have anybody, like, is app development, customer service, and things like that something that we could easily bolt on? Or is that like, you kind of need to hire more people, new specialists in order to maintain that system? So as we score different ideas and priorities, we're able to see like which of the opportunities that we have in front of us make the most sense, can drive the highest ROI, so that we can focus on doing the best thing with our time and limited resources. So, Kevin, to answer your question, that was a long answer to a short question, which is I've added it to my list.
I like that ICE framework. That's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, they keep chasing shiny objects.
Yes.
And everybody, like right now in the Amazon space, everybody's, you got to be on TikTok. You got to be on TikTok. You got to be on TikTok. It makes sense for some people to go on TikTok. Other people, no, you're not ready, or stay in your lane or whatever. And it just like this person I just mentioned that I just met that's doing 21 million on, and she's like, I'm tired. I'm running like ragged. If I take a break, I can't. The business, I couldn't be gone for more than a week. And so she doesn't have the systems in place, and she's like, I don't want to learn Amazon. I know I need to be on Amazon. I know there's a halo effect, and I could be making a lot more money, but I want to learn that. Can you help me? So staying in that lane, and I think that's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs. It's been hard even for me. And one of the things that I just did on this little sabbatical thing that I went on is like, what am I worth per hour? And so I'm willing right now to spend, an hour or two a day doing stuff that's below my pay grade. Answering a customer service email or what. At this point, that needs to eliminate. I'm willing to do that. But all the other times in my day, and that includes down to if Norm and I do a webinar, for Dragonfish, what is the ROI? If I'm going to put in 5 hours to create this webinar and we're only going to generate $7,000 off the webinar, that's way below my hourly rate. I'm not going to do it. We have to find other opportunities that will exceed that rate, and that's, I think, hard for a lot of people to do. And you're not going to always hit. Sometimes you think this is going to be a big payoff, and it's going to turn into a mess or not hit. But I think that's a shift that a lot of entrepreneurs do. How did you make that shift, or have you always had that in you?
Yeah, I think it's a shift as you level up in business, to be honest with you, because I was the guy with the shiny object syndrome. And that's kind of like one of the things. I think our brand could be at least double, if not triple the size that it is today, had we not got distracted with shiny object syndrome. And I think the challenge was like, as I went to like all these war room events, I heard of all these people that were making money selling digital courses or they were selling membership sites, or they were selling like, who know, like just the most random stuff, like, but they were just crushing it. And so one of the distractions that occurred to us that completely derailed us, to be honest with you, was like, we're like, oh, wow, these people are crushing it with the digital sales, digital products. Maybe there's like a course component to it. Why don't we do that for our own brand? So what we did is we started we've been producing physical products, and then all of a sudden we're going to flip and start doing these digital products, sell them on Etsy, sell them on our own website. We're also going to drive traffic from a blog. But yet this isn't feeding the beast. The beast at the time that was produced $1 million in revenue its first year in business was Amazon for us. But yet I had heard all these other shiny objects and cool things. I was like, oh, I got to go do that. And we distracted ourselves. We invested 2.5 years of our time focused on this digital membership business, creating a blog, hiring people for that business that ended up making us maybe $10,000 at most. And we actually lost money. Like, that's $10,000 in revenue. That doesn't include the salaried people that we had. So like, we probably lost over $300,000. And the wake up call came to us during COVID, because at COVID, primarily we were a party oriented business, party supplies, wedding invitations, party, invitations, etc. Well, when COVID hit us in the face, we watched our business decline on Amazon 90% overnight. And so when that happened, like, you're brought to your knees and you're like, what am I going to do now? Right. And so it was back to the drawing board. That's when, my wife and I had the wake up call to be like, okay, screw the digital products. We're done. Like, it hasn't even been making us money. We've been investing the majority of our time and energy on this side of the business. Wherein if we would have just focused more on the feeding the beast, the thing that was actually working for us, we could have been double the size we are now. But instead, we're not. So we came back, we had our kind of like moment to be like, what in the world are we doing? So now we laser focused on Amazon, and we did not stop focusing exclusively on Amazon in launching new products until we hit the 8-figure mark. And I believe that's kind of like the threshold people need to reach to until you begin considering other channels. I feel like that is like, you should be doing $1 million a month in whatever channel you choose and stay in that lane until you've hit that 8-figure annual revenue run rate. Because then at that point, you can then, yes, explore and be like, okay, I'm crushing it on Amazon, but now I can go turn my attention over to TikTok. Because as soon as you turn your attention somewhere else, you're stopping the focus on the main thing that's actually driving the majority of your revenue. And so that was kind of like the breakthrough for me. And so what I've done is like surrounded myself with a good team to say like, okay, before I go pivot and I go focus on another aspect or another sales channel for the business, I'm going to ensure that we have leadership and that channel can operate on its own. If not, I cannot divert my time and energy until I've got that one under lock and key. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Like, in my opinion, a leopard never changes their spots. Entrepreneurs, they're always looking for those shiny objects. And I'm glad to hear that you've got some checks and balances in there. But what's really going to stop you from going out and seeing these 10 other shiny objects? Have you mastered that yet?
No, because I go to Kevin's conferences, I go listen to your guys' podcasts, and I've got more ideas, right? And that's any entrepreneur, right? But I think it's being able to take those ideas and then being able to say like, okay, how do I build a team around me that can support that? So let's take, for example, like, all right, TikTok Shop. If you are interested in scaling TikTok Shop, right, and you're already having success on Amazon, and by the way, my rule of hitting 8 figures, like it's not a hard and fast rule. It's like a ballpark, right? You want to say like you've hit some decent momentum in that business, and really the reason why I say 8 figures is like if you've hit 8 figures, you should have a good enough net income to be able to support hiring leaders and staff that can continue to support the growth of that main channel, right? So Norm, as I look at these additional channels and when I do have these new ideas, a lot of the times I'm adding them to my to-do list. And what I'm doing is I begin networking. And I begin networking, figuring out who's the right who that I need to bring into the business that can go execute that strategy for me. What I have learned personally for myself is that I'm never going to be the person that is going to be the master of TikTok. I'm not going to be the master of Amazon. I would rather have team members that know it inside and out, and they could even run circles around me. But what I feel like a good entrepreneur is able to do, and the people that have been able to surpass 9 figures, is they've established a team around themselves and they have hired the right people that can come knock their socks off. So Norm, at the $1 Billion Seller Summit, I talked about my TikTok strategy, right? But guess what I've done since then? Like I was able to get TikTok maybe off the ground, but my whole focus has been, can I hire somebody that's like a 6-figure plus salary person that can come master this and run circles around me? And we were able to do that. We were able to find somebody that, again, Kevin, you talked about this other lady doing 21 million. I found one of the guys that ran L'Oreal's brands, right? And getting some just amazing people that know their stuff, hiring them and creating incentives that align both parties. And then we're off to the races. So, I mean, that's kind of like, I take my shiny objects and then I'm like, who's the right person that could actually run that? Because it's not myself.
So this first level or second level tier, right? So you've got you and your wife, and then you've got this executive tier. So I've seen you and I've heard you talk about your hiring policy in the past, but are these all, would you consider them all 6-figure people? Like you just talked about L'Oreal, and then the next tier down, you can go to the Philippines, India, wherever you want to go. How are you structuring that?
Yeah, great question. So we have like 80% of our team is in the Philippines. We also have Mexico. We also have some in the US. Here, like ultimately, here's what I do. The best who's, I have my hiring process, and it's really like, if you need a customer service person, I know I can go find like one of the top customer service people through my normal process. When it comes to like really like wicked smart, like I'll call them growth marketers for all intents and purposes, right? These are people that could basically be like the GM of a single channel and just like get you blown up. Those, from my experience, have all come from networking, which then goes back to another reason why I do the podcast. Like I said, forces me to network with really smart people. So I could say, and that's where this TikTok lead came from. It's like somebody else that I had on my podcast that I just reached out and said like, hey, by the way, I'm looking at this. Do you know anybody? He's like, actually, I just had a conversation with this guy yesterday. Would you be interested in talking with him? So I feel like when it gets to that level of leadership, it's less about those type of leaders you're not going to find through a job post on Upwork or LinkedIn. It's going to be from somebody that's already working somewhere else that you're going to have to convince of your vision, your strategy, and poach them, so to speak.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Levanta. Hey, Kevin, tell us a little bit about it.
That's right, Amazon sellers. Do you want to skyrocket your sales and boost your organic rankings? Meet Levanta, Norm and I's secret weapon for driving high-quality external traffic straight to our Amazon storefronts using affiliate marketing. That's right. It's achieved through direct partnerships with leading media outlets like CNN, Wirecutter, and BuzzFeed, just to name a few, as well as top affiliates, influencers, bloggers, and media buyers, all in Levanta's marketplace, which is home to over 5,000 different creators that you get to choose from.
So are you ready to elevate your business? Visit get.levanta.io/misfits. That's get.levanta, LEVANTA.io/misfits, and book a call, and you'll get up to 20% off Levanta's gold plan today. That's get.levanta.io/misfits.
I mean, your system you've outlaid that at and some webinars and at different events, but you've got a pretty sophisticated for finding the lower level people or the customer service type of people. You've got a really good process for actually vetting them. And I remember even on your TikTok, what you laid out at BDSS and ended up winning was your whole process of like most people reach out and then they send out samples. You're like, no, they're going to fill out a 30-page questionnaire or whatever the heck it is and answer these 5 questions. They're going to do all this. They're going to prove that they actually want to work with me. Yeah. And you had this whole process, and then you'll send them the samples because there's, like on TikTok Shop, there's a lot of people just want free samples and they're not going to ever do anything. So your process is, where does that come from? This system stuff that it's not just the employees, but you've talked about it in other places, in Market Masters and other events and stuff. Where does that come from? Is that something you learned in a war room? Is that something that's been inherent? Did you hear a podcast somewhere or someone talked about it and inspired you? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so that's where the shiny objects are actually like very, very helpful. So to answer your question about like my hiring process is basically a culmination of reading some books, but mostly attending conferences. And either it's a speaker that says something that I'm like, that's a really good question to ask, or that's a really good stage of how they hire people. I'm going to add that to my process. And in turn, I've been able to create a more fleshed out system. But it wasn't like, oh, I followed somebody else's playbook. It was somebody had this idea. I'm really good at that. Like, here's where my creativity shines through. And my wife says that, like, I don't know where this creativity comes from, but I'm not like artistically, I'm horrendous. Like, I'm not creative that way. But from a business perspective, like I'm fairly creative. So like with the TikTok stuff, right? I had heard what other people were doing. And then I just applied some of those things that, I had learned from Perry Belcher, things that I had learned from Ryan Dice, things that I have learned from, your Market Masters events, Kevin. And then I drip them in and I test them out. And so really, like, I think like, here's the lesson learned is people should always be learning and be in the right rooms with the smart people so that you can learn these things. And I don't think it's necessarily like, I can't pinpoint anything to, it was this one presentation that changed my life, but it was always like, it's a culmination of all these things that I've learned that I've then been able to adapt into my own filters and systems that have made it as powerful as it is today.
It's interesting you say that because I go to, as you and Norm both know, I go to a lot of events. I'm cutting that back some and being more selective. I've got some new rules, but what I get from them is not necessarily a new shiny object. The only one really in the last 5 years is to do a newsletter. But that's something I did 20 years ago, and it just reminded me, it's a kick in the butt, like, hey, Kevin, you're missing this. You should do it. So I started the newsletter. That's the only like new business channel that's come from it recently. But I hear stuff, and I treat them like brainstorming sessions. Or I'll listen to podcasts, or I'll watch webinars in 2 or 3x. I'm just looking for that one little thing that I can apply, and it's a curation. It's like exactly what you said, where you heard this one person say this, you heard this person say this one say this. Let me put them all together. And if you're not constantly learning and constantly listening to stuff or going to these events, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a very myopic view of stuff, and I think that's what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs because they don't do the learning, or they say they're going to, and they subscribe to stuff, but they never listen. They're too busy with life, and I think that's what sets the big ones apart. I think it was who was it? It was one of the guys on Shark Tank, the guy from Canada. You saw Robert. Yeah, he recently said something. I saw something come across TikTok, and someone was interviewing him, and it was a little short. And he's like, "These are the 3 things that we analyzed all the billionaires, all 237 billionaires, or whatever they are in the world, and these are the 3 characters we found in common. One of them was discipline. One of them, but the second one, I can't remember exactly the third one, but the second one was constantly learning, and not just in their field, but in other fields as well. And like you said, they don't have to be the expert, but they can put the dots together. And I think that's a skill that's a lot of people don't have, and a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with.
I think that in general for anybody, whether you're in the marketing space or you're just an entrepreneur at heart. The main thing that you should be focused on is casting a vision and knowing where you're going. I hear a lot of people, Kevin, especially in the Amazon space where I first started, that they see this as just like their break for financial freedom, right? And there's a lot of these people that create these, they cross 7 figures, maybe 8 figures. And then guess what I hear? They're starting yet again, another brand, another brand, another brand, another brand. I feel like a lot of people do themselves a disservice when they're not willing to learn and do the hard things. That's been something that I've tried to teach my team. We were literally just talking about this yesterday. Last year was a very challenging year for our business. For the first time ever, I had to invest my own personal funds back into the business to be able to fund payroll, right? So it was a very down year, very challenging year for us. And so it was stressful and it was painful. Well, guess what? On the flip side, this year we're up 75, 100%, and we're doing great. But guess what? It's still painful and it's still stressful. And so the realization has come to this, look, business, life is stressful. It means you're living, right? I would much rather have the stress and the pain that comes from growing than I would from declining. But do you know where that growth really comes from? It's when you lean in and you have to do the hard things. And my favorite analogy is this in the business world, which is just like playing a video game. And you go back and you had to beat levels, right? And there was always a boss. Alex Hormozy talks about this. There was a boss at the end of every level or a difficult challenge that you had to overcome. And guess what? You were probably going to die 9 times before you actually succeeded on the 10th time. And that's where I feel like people give up too often, is they can't beat this boss. They're able to beat the first boss, which is okay, I crossed $1 million on Amazon or whatever it is. But then, maybe your friend on the TikTok side of things, right? The next boss that you have to beat is going to be a challenging boss, right? If they're doing 21 million on TikTok, they might be stretched thin now, but guess what the boss is that they need to beat? They need to beat the boss of, guess what? You need to be able to hire somebody, a growth marketer or a COO that can come in here and run your existing TikTok business. Keep that afloat while you then go say, guess what? And then I could double my brand if we go over here to Amazon. So I'm making $21 million. Their net's probably at least $5 million bucks.
It's 6%.
So it's 6. All right. Okay. You're still doing well, right? You're still above $1 million. So you take that and you go invest it into hiring a 6-figure entrepreneur or growth marketer that can go run Amazon for you. And you go give them that playbook. Long story short is this. I feel like too many people give up and they're not willing to go through figuring out how to beat that boss, level up. And so the grass is always greener. They say, well, I know how to go make a couple $1 million. I'll just go start a new brand. But if you were to really cast that true long vision, that's why I say for myself, it's 9 figures. So for me, I know that's my vision. And I've got a lot of obstacles. I got a lot of bosses that I need to beat. I'm at level 1 right now, and I got to get to level 10. But it's being willing to be patient with myself and knowing the amount of growth that comes as I just continue to do and focus on the hard things, because most people don't. Kevin, I shared that at $1 Billion Seller Summit. That's the way I wrapped up my presentation. Do the hard things because most people won't. So that's why my hiring process is ridiculously hard for people to come through. That's why my creator process, it's ridiculously hard because most people won't do it. But the people I attract and that ultimately come through that, they're worth their weight in gold.
I listened to what you said there and very insightful, but there are a bunch of people that get into Amazon, Walmart, whatever, building a brand, and they don't understand what it takes. They watch a YouTube video and now they're all in with one toe and they get kicked between the legs and they're down. There's a lot of people that are in business right now that should not be in business, and they should get out and fail quickly. And, you know, if you can't stand there and get kicked 2, 3, 4, 5 times in between the legs and not get up, brush it off, and you can learn to do it. But if you don't have that risk evaluation, then being an entrepreneur is not for you.
How do you, like on that same note, how do you know when to give up? You just said you got these bosses and you might have 10 levels to go.
Yeah.
How do you know, like, okay, I got past 1, I'm past 2. All right, this just ain't working. How do you know? And that's what Norm is referring to, is like a lot of people should be giving up and moving on to something else, and they're not. So what in your mind, how do you make that judgment or that decision?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So I think like when you go through that ICE scoring method, right? As I look at my different priorities, like I've got to have a goal that gets into it, right? So here was our goal for TikTok Shop last year, right? Because that was our Hail Mary. When times were tough, I was like, all right, we got to figure something else out, right? And so
which is when usually the best stuff happens, is when times 100%. Are tough.
Yeah,
best ideas come out at that time. Yeah,
backs are up against the wall. So Kevin, this is the answer. My back was up against the dang wall. It's up against the wall. I can either figure this thing out, or guess what? Like, it's probably going to be a really rough year and we're going to have to start laying off more people. And maybe that's the end of our business, right? Like, so if you approach, and what I learned is it's a matter of volume. Most people do this. And people will ask me about TikTok Shop. They're like, how are you having success on TikTok? And I'm like, well, we reach out to a bunch of creators. And so they're like, yeah, I've done that. Man, the videos they create are terrible. And I've generated like maybe 2 sales. This is the question I ask them. Well, how many samples did you give out? Like, how many creators are we talking about? And the answer is oftentimes 50, maybe 100. And they're impressed. They feel pretty good about themselves if they can say 100. And then I say and then I laugh and I say, okay, that's like, try 1,000, right? Try 10x that. And what I've learned from this is like, I went all in, Kevin. I was messaging creators, thousands of creators, to try to pitch my product, right? To try to get them to promote my product. And it was not easy. And it was a lot of hours myself trying to get this out. But most people give up. And that's why I go back to like the boss was, I tried this. The easy button didn't work, Kevin. I tried this. I clicked a few different people. I said, okay, I'll send you out some samples. But that only took him just a few hours to do that. I'm talking about a full month. Whereas like I'm all in on this thing and I'm not going to stop until I've got somebody that's going to like actually move the needle for me. The best, and then I'll come back and circle to like, okay, so when do you know when you actually should give up? But the last portion is this. When you look at the volume that YouTubers, the amount of time that they take planning the number of videos and the number of ideas that they kill, but most importantly, the number of YouTube thumbnails that they create.
Are you looking to quickly boost new Amazon product launches or scale up existing listings to reach first page positioning? The influencer platform Stack Influence can help.
That's right. Stack Influence pushes high volume external traffic, sales straight to Amazon listings using micro influencers that you only have to pay with your products.
They've helped up-and-coming brands like Magic Spoon compete with Cheerios for top category positioning, while also helping Fortune 500 brands like Unilever launch their new products.
Right now is one of the best times to get started with Stack Influence. You can sign up at stackinfluence.com or click the link in this video down in the description or notes below and mention Misfits, that's MISFITS, to get 10% off your first campaign. stackinfluence.com.
before they even publish the video, they will test thousands of pieces of thumbnails. Like Mr. Beast will test 1,000 different pieces of thumbnails to see which one will work before he'll actually like release that video, right? And it performs well. Like that's the level of scale. I think like people just dismiss that. They think that Mr. Beast shoots a video on his phone and posts it, and people just love him and they just flock to him. It's like, you don't understand the amount of volume and time that guy has put into every video. Most people think they're like, oh, for a 1 hour video, what? I spent 3 hours, maybe some light editing. It's like, no, try 100 hours that got edited down to an hour. So to circle back to like, so at what point do you give up? I feel like for me, anything that we've done, like you heard my earlier story, like I invested 2.5 years into something and I didn't give up, Kevin. I think you keep going until like you have a better alternative. So my alternative to TikTok last year was like, I knew it was this. It's either going to be retail for our business or it's going to be TikTok shop that helps us break out.
Two thumbs up.
There's the balloons. Anybody want? Those of you listening to this podcast now got to go check out the YouTube video.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Some balloons just.
It's a celebration.
Celebration. But I knew what my alternative was, Kevin. Right? That it was like, okay, if this doesn't work, then this is my alternative. But I also know that going into retail is not going to be easy. And so it's still on my plate. It's still on my roadmap of something that we will do. But like, I'm going to go all in and I want thousands of hours invested into this thing before I'm going to say like, it doesn't work for me. So I don't know, Kevin. I don't think it's like a hard and fast rule of like, it's not a numbers. It's not like a defined X amount of revenue. It's not a number of X amount of hours that I've invested into it. I would just say this, if you're going to go into something, you have to say like, I went all in. Because if you said like, I gave it a C+ effort, well, of course it didn't work, but it may have worked if you went all in and gave it an A+ effort. And so like, I think that's where most entrepreneurs go wrong is they try to dip their toes into every little water or every idea that comes their way, but nothing ever gets their best. They're not all in on one thing.
I think a lot of them are looking for that easy button, like you said.
Exactly. So you've spent years developing your brand. We understand what happened back during COVID, but a lot of entrepreneurs, when they're moving forward, they see good years of growth, but then they have that bad year. And I'm kind of curious, you were like, we've talked for years. What happened last year? And then all of a sudden, now you're back. I'm just curious. Why did you have such a bad year?
Yeah,
he's back because he listened to a podcast on the drive home. Remember, Norm, the value of listening to podcasts that he said in the beginning.
Marketingmisfits.co.
It's true. It's true. And again, I'll always give credit where credit's due. Like I say every time I speak, like I'm a man of faith, and I do not dismiss that like it was a stroke of inspiration and that the Lord answered my prayer, right? Gave me the stroke of inspiration, enlightened my mind to pursue the route that we pursued. But Norm, to answer your question, which was like, why was last year such a bad year? Here's where we went wrong. Okay. And this is a very important lesson. We went wrong because our number one growth lever has always been launching new products. Okay. Always launching new products. Here's where we kind of started to go wrong. Our manufacturer, we've always sourced our products in the US. And we started to really we started to cap out the number of products that we could produce here in the US at an affordable rate. And I was not willing to confront the boss. Here's the boss that I needed to confront. I needed to be able to source products elsewhere, outside of the US. And I was unwilling to confront that boss because logistics sounded challenging. I'm not interested in that. I also don't want to fly 16, 17, 18 hours to go tour different factories and things like that. I was content with the way things were. But guess what happened? My product pipeline started to dry up. And I knew this, and I told my wife, like, I know, like, and I said this back in 2023, man, if only we could get better products, if we actually had somebody sourcing something from Asia for us, we could be a totally different brand. But I didn't do it. And so it finally caught up to us when we launched a couple different products that were manufactured here in the US at like $6 a unit, when you could go manufacture that same product for maybe 50 cents overseas. And that product didn't go over very well. And we dropped 6 figures into that product launch, and it just sucked up all the cash and had no return on it. And I was like, crap. So that's when our back was up against the wall. TikTok was that kind of stroke of genius for us. But at the same token, I took one of our best team members on our team, and I said, your job is to go and source products from an Asian manufacturer. We have to figure this out. And so that started at that time. And so, yes, we started sourcing products overseas. So it's a combination of both things working for us. We have been able to increase like just brand awareness for our products, right? That's the reason why a good portion of our sales, like we're up 75% year over year, is that brand awareness. But the second component is like, great, now we're sourcing products that we could never have sourced before. And so we're back in the game. I'm launching products. I can compete in all of these other areas that I could see in the past, but I was not willing to confront that boss. And so Norm, like, I had like my back was up against the wall. And so I had to do the hard things last year. Like I literally had to do all the hard things I did not want to previously do because I was just content with the status quo. And it was those ideas. So every year in business, that's why I say like you unlock levels, even every year as a business owner. And for me, that unlock was like beating the boss of just sourcing products overseas. Sounds stupid because anybody in the Amazon game, they're like, that's 101, bro. Like, come on. But for me, it was like, I don't want to have to deal with this. U.S. manufacturing was super easy for me. So that's the answer.
Now, Norm, that Josh plays hockey, right?
I heard.
You play hockey though, Norm, right? Because you're
a midnight league or something, right? You go at midnight and skate around the Galleria or something.
Yeah, it's called the Fossil League. It's very popular up here in Canada.
I play again, and I make sure that I'm in that 35 plus year league so that I can play against people like Norm that have their Norm. That is a very good hockey playoff beard.
Yeah, I started it, just last week when the playoffs started.
That's for some reason I don't feel like I've ever seen you clean shaven.
He's trying to be the Buffalo Bill in American football. The Buffalo Bill's mascot, with the big.
I get it.
Yeah, I put the horns on, and nobody can tell the difference.
He's going to be good when they go to the Super Bowl.
But that's how I release my frustration and pent up stress. Is I get to go shake it all out at midnight on this Friday night at the ice.
Playing hockey. So just finding something. I used to play in the men's league as well, 35 plus. I played industrial league after like when I was in my 20s, but that's friggin' rough. It's really tough hockey back then anyways. And it's being able to go out there, rub shoulders with other people. And most of the people that I played hockey with were senior vice presidents of this company, vice president over here. We were able to launch and maintain some Fortune 500 connections because of that. But it wasn't so much the hockey and, putting somebody into the boards. It was afterwards, cracking a beer. This is back in the day when you could do this in the dressing room, having a drink, going out in the parking lot, bringing out the wings and actually creating that bond. And it's so important. Like you just said it, release that stress. And you're able to go home and start the next day. even though it's midnight and you've just had 2 pounds of wings.
Oh, he comes back after the hockey, and I get an email from him at 1:30 in the morning. So when I'm corresponding with Josh, I'm like, I know if I message him at 4, there's going to be no. I'm surprised he's doing this podcast in the middle of the afternoon. Like, I'm surprised he didn't say, "Can we do it at 12:30?" Because he's always
higher likelihood for sure.
How do you? Speaking of that, how do you balance faith, family, and business?
Yeah. I don't think there's any balance whatsoever. I think everything always shifts from one pendulum to another. But as I did mention, I'm very regimented with my time, right? And so oftentimes I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. Is kind of us like, I look at all my friends in like the corporate world, because like I worked at American Airlines. The amount of just wasted time that is in corporate America is like beyond mind blowing. But like they're texting about different like plays that we should execute at baseball or basketball throughout the day. But like my phone's on silent, right? And I'm just like, I don't get like why my phone's blowing up. How do people have this time to chat with people? So like the way it works for me is this. Every morning I'm up at 7 a.m. doing a workout until I go take my kids to school at 8:15 a.m. I get back home, and at 9 a.m. is my kind of devotional scripture study, meditation time, prayer. And then at 10 a.m., I've either will start so my days are scheduled as such. Mondays are meeting days, and then Wednesdays are meeting days. Fridays, like in the late afternoon, will kind of be like a catch-all. So like, yours happened to be on a Friday, so it ended up working out. But like Mondays and Tuesdays are my meeting days. And I stack my calendar. It's backloaded, which means this. If I have to be out the door at 5 o'clock to go coach my kids' baseball, softball team, my last meeting will start at 4:30 or whatever. And then every meeting that needs to be stacked on top of that just goes backwards, right? Till it gets to the front of the day, which starts at 10 a.m. So Mondays and Wednesdays, I backload my days until, like, to be honest with you, like most Mondays and Wednesdays are like I am on back-to-back calls. Like literally, I don't even have enough time for lunch. So that's Mondays and Wednesdays. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays are going to be my days where I actually get deep focused work done. And this is where I'm actually able to move mountains, where I can like sit down and think about like a complex like hiring funnel or a TikTok creator outreach or the next product that we're going to launch on Amazon. I need that deep focused time where like there's no distractions. Like the phone is on silent and I'm not looking at email. Like email's like the stepchild. Email is something that I don't get to until 9 or 10 o'clock at night after the kids have gone to bed. And then as Kevin mentioned, like I'm often not going to bed until like 1 or 2 in the morning every day. And that's just because like I'm playing catch up at the end of each day, because the emails are the least important thing in the business. The most important thing is me being able to focus on the key priorities, the 3 big rocks that we have in the business. And that requires my deep focus time. So I could ramble on forever, but I think it's just prioritizing all of that. And for me, I write down my goals every day. And one of my big goals is like, I will never sacrifice time with my family and my kids for work, especially at this point. Figuratively, like my 25-year-old self would be so envious at the life that I'm living now. And so I need to be grateful for that. Although I have bigger aspirations, I'm also very grateful for like how far I've come. And so if I would be envious of the life I'm living now, I could work more. There's always more things that can be done in work, but here's what I can never get back. I can never get back the time to be able to coach my son's 9U baseball team. I can never get the time back to watch my daughter compete in the state gymnastics competition. I can never get back that time to go to the tea party at my daughter's school for the toddlers, right? And so it's being able to recognize there are certain things that only happen at a very brief moment in time. in life, and being able to say, like, look, these are the big rocks that I'm going to fill my jar with. And honestly, the work is going to be the sand that just needs to fill in the rest of the cracks. And then when I'm just too tired to work, which is often that 1:30 a.m., that's when I'm done for the day because I'm too tired to work. So for me, it is faith, family. Those are the two top priorities of the day. And then, work sits in between all of that. But it's always a juggle, and it always ebbs and flows, and no day is perfect by any means. But I try to keep that as like my prioritization.
Hey, Kevin King and Norm Farrar here. If you've been enjoying this episode of Marketing Misfits, thanks for listening this far. Continue listening. We got some more valuable stuff coming up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast player, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you subscribe to our channel because you don't want to miss a single episode of the Marketing Misfits. Have you subscribed yet, Norm?
Well, this is an old guy alert. Should I subscribe to my own podcast?
Yeah, but what if you forget to show up one time and it's just me on here? You're not going to know what I say.
I'll buy you a beard and you can sit in my chair too. And you can go back and forth with one another. Yikes! But that being said, don't forget to subscribe, share it. Oh, and if you really like this content, somewhere up there, there's a banner. Click on it and you'll go to another episode of the Marketing Misfits.
Make sure you don't miss a single episode because you don't want to be like Norm.
Oh.
What's the ultimate dream on that before we wrap up? Is it to build this to 9 figures and then exit and then move your family to life on a beach or with a hockey rink nearby and a gymnastics arena? Or what's the ultimate end goal?
Yeah. To be honest, here's my ultimate end goal. I think achieving 9 figures adds the credibility to who I am and what I can build as a businessman. I want to become the Alex Hormozi of the e-commerce industry. That people know, like, this guy can move mountains, but specific. Alex Hormozi is very broad, business-based topics. Love it, absolutely love it. But I want to be that guy in the e-com space specifically. And it's not necessarily to go retire or to exit and to have this big payday. I mean, one day that would be great. And when that happens, my time will then be devoted exclusively to just giving back to help other business owners succeed. Because I am a culmination of giants that were before me. I came from a middle income home, great parents, but neither of them were entrepreneurs. I was fortunate enough, like, because I worked my freaking butt off in college, that like I paid my way through college through gaining scholarships. And those scholarships came from the man I'm talking about is Pierre Lassonde, who was an extremely wealthy diamond miner, right? And he gave back, and then he would go teach those entrepreneurs. So to me, giving back, I don't see myself ever retiring. I see myself being able to continue to teach, inspire, and educate the next generation of entrepreneurs to make a difference in the world. That is one thing I know, is that entrepreneurs can be and should be the biggest difference makers that can change the world.
Perfect way to end the podcast, sir. I got a question for you. This is a easy one. At the end of every podcast, we ask our misfits if they know a misfit.
I do know. I know lots of misfits. That's why I'm on this. Okay. Had this guy on my podcast. Super interesting guy. He is the author of the book Marketing for Supervillains, Jesse James Roblewski. You know him?
No.
Okay. You should have him on the show.
All right. Well, we look forward to that intro. And sir, thank you for being on the show today. It was awesome.
Hey, always a pleasure. Thank you. You guys are entertaining. Love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
Thank
if people
you.
want to find you or reach out, it's Ecom Breakthrough on all the podcast platforms, YouTube and stuff. Or if they want, you're on LinkedIn, or what's the best way if someone wants to connect with you?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me, Josh at ecombreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's. And then follow me on YouTube, any podcast platform. That's where I share all the good stuff.
All right,
Awesome.
Josh. Well, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to remove you, but don't go away. We'll be right back. So, see, Kev, here's the button. No Coke Zero button or sticker, nothing. I got it right there.
Oh,
See?
wow. Norm.
Look at that.
Norm, you've grown up, and it's like training a dog.
Oops, I didn't get it right.
Oh, see.
Oh,
It's like training a dog, just enough repetitions and you finally get it.
yeah, that's right.
Just don't pee in the house, please.
I won't pee in your house, but I'll eat some of your ice cream.
yeah, you'll do that. No, that Josh is really good, and I think he's on a mission there, not only business wise but personally. And I love the fact that he's going to give back. I've talked a couple times about my little baunt to St. Bart's to actually get my mind clear, and we talked in one of the other episodes how I have some chapters in my life, and I'm in chapter 8 right now, and that's going to be I'll tell you about that when we meet personally, and I think you'll like it. But chapter 9 is another one, but chapter 10, the final, is I want to do exactly what Josh just says. I don't think I'll ever completely retire and just go sit on a beach and watch Oprah all day. I'll actually be giving back, and I want to actually give back and help people in that same way. And I think all entrepreneurs should actually, if you want, I think that's one of the best things you can do when you're successful, is not go out and just treat yourself and buy a lot of fancy stuff, but make a difference in the world. And
Right.
The way you make a difference in the world is by helping other people and giving them that lifting hand or that little advice. And that's, to me, it just happened at this event I was just at in Fort Lauderdale yesterday. I was walking by to get a Coke Zero from the little tienda place, and there's a couple girls sitting there that recognized me from this Rainmakers group. That's another like Amazon group, and I didn't know who they were, but they knew me because I'd been on there a few years ago, and they stopped me and we just started talking, and one of them asked a question about, she works for this company, and she asked a question, and I took about 5 minutes and gave her a bunch of free advice. And at the end of that, gave her some ideas. At the end of that, she said, this just made me coming to this event entirely worth it. And to me, that's what, when you're at the level of success or notoriety or that you and I and Josh and others are, that I think that's an important thing that a lot of people don't think about or don't give back. And you don't want people taking advantage of you, but to help someone out like that, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, sir.
So if you want to learn some more stuff that's rewarding and really good, you can check out the marketingmisfits.co. I think I got that right now. .co.
You bug me about the bloody remove button here. It's .co.
It's .co, not .com.
Nope,
And
.co.
so check out the site. There's some information. You might see me and Norm smoking a cigar there or something. Who knows what you might see? But you can find all the links to everything that we do, including the CMS trip that's coming up in, it looks like in November. We'll have more information on that coming soon, as well as look for, at some point mid to late summer, we should have a newsletter for Marketing Misfits as well. So you'll be able to subscribe to that. And a lot of more cool episodes. Every Tuesday, a brand new episode comes out. So if you like this one with Josh, feel free to share it, send that on to other people, or check out the channel and listen to some of the other ones. We got a lot of really good ones. So
And
thanks,
don't forget
Oh yeah,
the new
don't forget.
YouTube channels.
That's
We've
right,
got
the
2
new YouTube
YouTube
channel.
channels. Yep. And so what we're doing, we've got long form on one, and then we've got all the nuggets on the other, all the short form on the other. So check it out. That one is called Marketing Misfits Clips.
Awesome. So check that out, and then we'll see you again, you ladies and gentlemen, again next week, next Tuesday. Ciao.
See you.